Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Rachel Klein and I will be your presenter for today. Today we're going to look at transferring donations over into accounting. So we're going to go into setting up your default account links. So when money comes into your giving accounts and donations, when you enter them, linking those giving accounts to the proper debit and credit accounts in accounting, and then transferring that money over into accounting so you don't have to re-enter anything on that side. So before we jump in, I do want to point out a couple things. Today we are going to be focusing on one of our donations workbooks. It's donations or D103 and it's pages 1 through 18. So I want to jump out to the website real quick and show you where you can purchase this workbook if you like. So at churchwindows.com, over along the left hand side, let me grab my highlighter real quick. Under Church Windows Training, you can click on this Workbooks button here and it's going to take you to all of our available workbooks that we have. And we've got a bunch on membership. Here we go, donations, D103. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, specifically pages 1 through 18. So if you would like to purchase this workbook to have this information for you in the future, you can. Pricing is up here at the top. It is $12 if you wish to download this workbook and you can print it off yourself, or it's $22 if you want a pre-printed binder ready form that we would send to you in the mail. So it's up to you what format you would like, but this is where you would go to get the information from today's webinar. Okay, and that's all at churchwindows.com. Also, during our webinar today, Kellyanne's listening in. She'll be available to answer any questions you might have. There is a question section on your GoToWebinar toolbar. Feel free to type in a question that relates to today's topic. She'll be happy to answer it for you. If you have more specific questions about your data or a question that's a bit off topic, please call us at our support line or shoot us an email to support@churchwindows.com and we can get those questions definitely answered for you today. Also, our current version of Church Windows is 19.16.0 and we're getting really close to getting the .1 out. So keep an eye out for that. And on your GoToWebinar toolbar, there is a little orange rectangle with a white facing arrow in it. If you click that, it'll shrink up your toolbar to give you some extra space on your screen to see what I'm doing. Okay, let's jump in because we just have about 20 minutes. So we're going to go over two different pieces of transferring to accounting. So first things first, you have to own and use the accounting module for this to apply to what we're doing today. So donations, that's where you're entering in your giving that you get from your givers each week. You might do it multiple times throughout the week if you get money in on days other than Sunday. But once those donations are entered and posted, then you need to set up your account links. So whenever money goes to a particular giving account, you have the option to set up a default account link. So whenever someone gives to general fund and you transfer that money over into accounting, it's automatically going to be set up to debit and credit particular chart of accounts over on the accounting side. So we're going to go over how to do that linking, and then we're also going to look at transferring that money. So actually getting that money out of donations over into the accounting module. So you can set up the default account links in accounting, or you can do it from donations. The window is exactly the same whether you view it from accounting or whether you view it from donations. So just for today's sake, I'm going to be working in donations. So there's two different ways you can get to the transfer screen. Let me show you both. One would be up at the top here in donations, simply clicking on this transfer to accounting button. By clicking on that, it's going to take you up to your transfer donations to accounting window, which this first tab is going to show you any of your giving that's waiting to go to accounting, which we'll talk about in a minute. But then you can get to your default account links tab from right here. So by clicking on that default account links tab, I can see all of my giving accounts listed in the left column, and then my debit and my credit columns listed after that. Now you can also get to that screen by going up to special functions, which is usually the way I get to this screen, but like I said, both ways are the same. Special functions, and then right onto this link to accounting option, and it opens up that default account links tab right away for you. Okay, now another note, before you can come in here and set up these default account links, you have to have a chart of accounts set up over in accounting. Okay, if you don't have any accounts over in accounting, you're not going to be able to link anything because they don't exist. So that's pretty straightforward, but wanted to make sure I put that in there. Okay, so on this tab, you have your giving accounts listed on the left. These are in fact the accounts that you have set up for donations. So whenever someone gives money and you're working in enter donations, these accounts you see are the accounts that people can give to when entering donations. These accounts are only going to be seen on the donation side. Okay? The next column is going to be your debit account. This is going to be your asset. So this is going to be, for example, the bank account where that money or that giving is deposited. Okay? Then you're going to have your credit account column. So this is going to be a 4 account, which is an income account. It's going to be a 5 account, which is a liability, and you also have the option to use a number 2 account, which is going to be your liability account. So you have 4 is income, 5 is expense. I think I might have said that wrong. 4 is income, 5 is expense, 2 is liability. Okay, so you have the option to select those particular accounts to credit when you transfer your donations over into the accounting module. You also then have this prepaid credit account column. Now, as you can see, it says optional right here. This would be for any prepayments that people will give to their pledge. So for example, if you have someone that gives at the end of this year, so say in December 2016, but they want that money to credit a pledge that they've made for 2017, this would be when you would utilize that prepaid credit account column. So for example, if general fund is always your pledge account that you pledge to, as long as you have a prepaid credit account filled in here, when the program realizes there's a prepaid that's been entered through enter donations, instead of that prepaid amount going into the usual income account, it's going to put it in that liability account, which is like a holding tank, and that will keep that money there and carry forward into the new year, where you can then transfer that money out through a journal entry and have it show up as income in the next year, in 2017. So if you have more questions about that, we do have a document on the website about specifically prepaids. We also have a end of year document and donations that will cover that. But this is in fact where you would specify where you want those prepaid donations to go into accounting. It'll be right in this column. All right, let me get caught up here. So to pick an account, so if you look down here, we have the Save the Animals drive. We see that we're actually missing a credit account. There isn't anything filled in right here. So to fill an account or select an account, you just simply click on this box and then a little down arrow is going to appear. So once the down arrow appears, you just hit it and then you see all of your accounts that you can choose to credit. So once again, you have your 2s, which are your liabilities, your 4, which are your income accounts, and then your 5s, which are your expense accounts. Okay? So without getting into too much more detail about the type of accounts, that is where you go in and you actually plug in those giving accounts. Okay? Let me get caught up here. Transfer donations to accounting. So let me close the screen. So once you get all your account links set up, then you need to transfer those donations over into accounting. So once the batch is posted, you're going to come into this transfer to accounting screen, and you're going to see those batches that are waiting to go over to accounting. So you actually have those 3 tabs in here. You have transfer donations. Like I said, these are the batches that are waiting to go over to accounting. You have your default account links, which we just talked about. And then you also have your posted transfers. So these are going to be the batches that we've already sent over to accounting. This is where the record is kept for those. All right, but jumping back over here to transfer donations, I went ahead before we started the webinar and put in these 3 batches for October. As you can see, it has our date occurred. I didn't use a batch code, so that's blank. And then it also has the total amount for each batch. You can also hit the little plus sign to the left of the date occurred here. And it'll show you the giving accounts that were used to make up this batch. It shows you how much went into each of those giving accounts. And then it also shows us our default debit and our default credited accounts. Okay, those are going to be listed right here. Now, let's say for some particular reason, say you have a specific Sunday where you need to transfer money from the general fund into a different credited account. Maybe you're doing a fundraiser of some type or something like that. For this particular batch, you do have the option to change temporarily, just for this batch, the debit and the credit account. You can do that just by clicking on the box and the down arrow appears, and then picking a different account if you ever need to do that. Now, changing it on this screen, like I said, is just temporary. It's only for this specific batch. You probably won't need to do this, but the option is there to pick a different debit or credit account. Okay? Now, I also set up an example. Let me find it. I think it's on the 16th. Yeah, it's right here. So I went ahead and created a new giving account while I was entering donation. It's supposed to say Van Fund, missing the D, but so Van Fund is the new giving account I created. But once I created it, I actually did not go in and set up my default account links. I did not do that yet. So if I try to hit post, I'm going to get a red X, and if I hover over it, it's going to tell me why it's there. So you must select a debit and credit account before transferring over to accounting. So the program is going to say, stop, you need to tell me where you want this money to go before I send it over. So you can do that right here, real easy. Pick your debited account, same thing, pick your credited account. Let's see if I just have like a fundraising income. Yeah, here we go. I'll just choose fundraising income. You could also go into accounting and make a brand new income account specifically for the new van, if that's something that you'd want to do. But once you have your 2 accounts selected, then you can go ahead and hit post. And it's going to bring you to the confirmation screen where you would then make sure everything looks good and hit post again to send it over to accounting. Okay. Now let's talk about default account links one more time. So even though I plugged in the debited and the credit accounts here on transfer donations, it was only for that one batch for the Van Fund. So if I want to set up my default account links, so every time I post a Van Fund, I want it to go to those 2 debit and credit accounts I picked, I have to come back to the default account links tab and pick it here so it will stick. It will always remember to go to those accounts for my Van Fund. Oh, where is it? There we go. Fundraising income. Okay. Now let's talk about do not transfer. So you do have some options here. Say for some reason you have a batch in donations that you do not need it to go over to accounting. Say you made a correction over in accounting, or say you don't want to send this correction into accounting because you made some type of journal entry to correct it. Say it was from an older date or something to that effect. You have the option for any batch to place a check mark in this do not transfer box. By doing that, it's going to essentially hide the batch from showing up here in the screen, and it's also going to gray out the post button. So you can't accidentally hit post until this box is unchecked. Okay, so that's just a way to keep a batch from going over into accounting. All right, I need to pick up the pace here. We got a lot to cover. You can also print from this screen if you wish. You have a print selected transfer button here. So you would just simply click to highlight the batch that you want the report for. Let me get my pointer back here. And then once it's highlighted, hit print, selected transfer. You can pick your columns here, adjust your sort if you need to, and hit print, and then you're going to have a nice neat report of what you're transferring over to accounting. All right, now once a batch is sent over to accounting, you also have the option to print it. So if we go over here to posted transfers, here's the batch that I just sent over today. If I click to highlight this, I can then hit print, and it's going to give me the same information, but it's now going to give me a transaction number instead of saying unposted. So I know, in fact, this went over to accounting. So it just kind of depends on if you need a report before you send it over to accounting, or if you want the report showing the confirmation that it did go over to accounting. All right, so another option for transferring. Let's say, for example, you have two separate computers. So say you have a computer that does your accounting, and then you have a computer that just does your membership and your donations. If that's the case, you can make a backup of Church Windows, and you can then restore it to another computer. So say you entered your batch for Sunday, and you want to back it up, and you want to get it over to the person who does the accounting, which is not networked. It's on a completely separate computer. Maybe it's at their home. If this situation applies to you, then you would come in here after you put in your batch, you would post it, you would come back to the main screen here of Church Windows, and you would make a backup. Okay? Administration and backup. And you would pick to only back up membership and donations. You don't want to back up accounting. And just by backing up membership and donations, you can hit Start Backup, and this will back up your data to, say, a flash drive, if that's the way you transfer your data to the person who just has accounting on their machine. And then once it's backed up, you would give them the flash drive, and then they would then come into administration, and they would go into restore, and then they would restore that backup that you just made that includes the most recent donations. Okay? This situation does not apply to everyone. If you use Church Windows on a network, you don't need to do this because you're all linked together. But this situation would be specifically for two separate computers, one that does the accounting and one that tracks the donations, and this is how to move that donations data over to the person who does the accounting. Okay? All right, last thing we're going to go over is an exporting a batch option. This is for people who also use donations and accounting on two separate machines. So say you have one computer at the church that just does the donations, and you have another computer on the total opposite end of the church that just does accounting. They're not connected. They don't talk to each other. In the Transfer to Accounting screen, you have the option to only export the batch. Okay, so this is different from making an entire backup of Church Windows, like I showed you before, and moving that backup to another computer. This is only looking at this donations batch that we choose to export. So if we click to highlight our batch from 10/9, we can hit this up here, Export Transfers to File button. By clicking that, it's going to give us kind of this big scary message because not a lot of people do this. But it's basically telling you if you export this batch, you're not going to be able to transfer to accounting anymore. So for some people, this is what you want because accounting's somewhere else. You just click OK through this. But if you accidentally click this button and you really don't need it to export because your accounting is linked, then you would hit cancel. But for this example, we're going to go ahead and hit OK. And then it's going to ask us to save the file. So it needs us to pick the location. So I'm just going to pick desktop. You could always put it on a flash drive for moving it easily to the other computer. And now it tells me that it's been exported to this location and the name of the file is transfer.xml. And I just hit OK. Now from this point, when whomever you give this to, say a person who does an accounting, they can come right into accounting and come in here to transfer donations. And they can then, oops, I'm missing my button. I need to look at this. But they would then have a button right here. I'm going to let the programmers know about this. But then right here, you would be able to then import that into the wherever the accounting is that you're using. Okay, this doesn't apply to a lot of people, but it's in the workbook and I wanted to point it out. So if you have more questions about this, please let me know or call somebody here and we can go over it. Whew, all right, there was a lot of stuff to cover in just 18 pages. So let me take a peek here at questions. If you need to go, of course, go ahead and leave. I know I went over my time. But if you have any questions, feel free to type those in. We'll be happy to answer them for you. All right. If you're typing, just hit send so we can get it and get you answered. But if I don't see something pop in here in the next couple seconds, I am going to go ahead and close it and let everybody get back to work. All right. I hope you all learned something new today. I hope you learned something that will help you make your job a little easier. If you come up with any questions, feel free to call us or email us at support@churchwindows.com. We will be happy to help you, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. Thanks.